Well, there you are. We're only 2 weeks into the new liturgical year, and already we seem to have run out of the Gospel of Mark. We're using John to fill in this morning, to stretch out the story. That's not quite the reason. There's still plenty of Mark's Gospel to go. But last week, what we heard from Mark about John the Baptist, those few verses, are all he has to say about him. He gets just to the point. Again, like I said, it's a little bit like a bullet point outline that says, here came John, and he wore funny clothes, and he said funny things, and he baptized people, and that's it. And the lectionary includes this portion from the Gospel of John because it fleshes out the idea of who John the Baptist was, what exactly his role was, where he fits both into the scheme of things and particularly where he fits in God's plan. Now, you may have noticed this morning that there's nothing in John's version that talks about camel hair clothing or a leather belt. There's nothing in there about eating locusts and wild honey. The other Gospels, the three synoptic Gospels, Mark, Matthew, and Luke, say things like that. But John is not interested in his diet or in his haberdashery style. What John is interested in telling us is that there is a plan that God has for the world. There is a plan that reaches back from before time. There is a plan that God has that will lead all of us, all of we human beings whom God loves so dearly and whom we disappoint so bitterly and so repeatedly, that God has a plan for us. That God is leading us towards something, that God is bringing us to a new beginning, a new start, a new way of being. And in John's Gospel, that's the principal role that John the Baptist plays. He is, if you will, the light bearer, the forerunner, the one who comes before to announce. Remember, last week we talked about the agelion, that proclamation that was made. The Roman proclamation, an official word that came out. John is coming with the angelion. And the angelion is that there is somebody greater coming after me, somebody who is so much greater than I am. He denies, he says, I'm not Elijah. I am not a prophet. I am most certainly not the Messiah. Don't get that wrong. I am the voice crying in the wilderness. I am the one that's shouting out the proclamation. I am the one that's saying good news is coming. The one thing that all four of our gospel accounts do include about John is the phrase that he is the voice of one crying in the wilderness. In a wilderness of darkness, in a wilderness of oppression, in a wilderness where the people of Israel were an occupied army or an occupied force by an invading army. The Romans had oppressed them and kind of kept them down. They let them practice their religion, but they weren't free to be the people that God was calling them to be. In the same way, we hear John's voice today. John's voice today continuing to cry out in the wilderness, in our own darkness, in our own oppression, in our own place of occupation, where we feel weighed down by the world, where we are anxious and worried and disturbed by all the things that we hear on the news, when we have our own problems in our own homes of illness and shortages and problems with friends and family that don't seem to reconcile themselves, and we feel fretful and worried, and we just wish things were different. And we raise our voice with the prophet Isaiah from a couple of weeks ago when he pleads to God. He says, "Oh God, that you would tear open the heavens and come down." We are listening for a voice in the wilderness, a voice that is telling us the path to follow, a voice that's telling us that things will get better, that things will improve, that we shall live in wholeness and fullness and beauty in life and love. And what John says this morning that is so important, what he tells the Pharisees and what the Pharisees just don't get, is he says, I'm not the Messiah. I'm not the Messiah that you're waiting for. I'm not the Messiah that's going to come with a mighty sword arm. I'm not the Messiah that's going to come with an army behind me to cast the Romans out of your life. I'm not the Messiah that's going to come and transform everything overnight. I'm not the Messiah that's going to snap his fingers and suddenly make everything new and different and bring back Israel, the golden days. To use a more modern phrase, John says, I'm not here to make the house of Israel great again. I'm here to testify to the light. I am here to bear witness to the light. I am here to be the forerunner of the light. I am the voice crying in the wilderness to tell you that the light that will light your way out of this darkness, out of all of this trouble, out of all your anxiety is coming. A light that is so great and so powerful and so wonderful that it will illuminate the dark corners of the whole world. That's what John has come to do, to say that a light, a new light, was coming into the world. Now, if you cast your mind back or turn a few pages back in our imaginary Bible, you will come to that opening prologue of John's Gospel, the fourth evangelist, who says that a new light was coming into the world, and it was a light that the darkness did not overcome. The Gospel of John is all about the coming of the light, the coming of truth, the coming of joy and beauty and love. The good news of John is good news for us as it was good news for the children of Israel over 2,000 years ago. The good news of John's gospel is that God has begun a new thing, has begun a new thing in our lives and in our world. And it's not a new thing that God just thought of, because casting our mind back to that prologue to John's gospel, that this light was the Word, and the Word was with God in the beginning. And not one thing was created without him. That this light, this good news, this wonderful thing that was going to happen has been here waiting since before time itself, waiting to lead us out of darkness, to lead us out of oppression, to lead us out of anxiety, to lead us out of worry. God asks us to lift our voices with John the Baptist, to cry out in the wilderness, to say, we don't have the answers, we don't know the way, we're not the Messiah, we're not the prophet, we're not the one who's coming. But we lift our voices with John the Baptist to say that a new light has come into the world. We, with John the Baptist, testify to the light. We, with John the Baptist, bear witness to the light because we know in our own darkness, in the darkness of our own hearts, our own hearths, our own homes, our own lives, we have seen and know the light of Christ shine upon us and within us. We know that that light is the light that will dispel all the darkness and all the gloom from our lives and from the lives of all the people in the world. We are not the light. We cannot cast out the darkness. Only God can do that. Only God can do that amazing, wonderful, transformational work to bring light to the hearts and souls and minds of the whole world. It is not our job to be the light, because God's Son, Jesus Christ, is the light of the world. And we, with John the Baptist, are here to bear witness to him, to testify on behalf of him, to tell the story of how God's love has touched us and healed us and lifted us up and brought us from darkness into light. Be the voice crying in the wilderness. Be the shining example to others. Show those who are downtrodden and hard-hearted and angry and bitter and broken that there is a light in the world. There is a light that is coming into their world if they will but open their eyes and their ears and their hearts to receive it. We are not the light. We are broken, as all human beings are broken. We try and we fail, but we keep coming back. And the fact that we keep picking ourselves up and coming back and keep moving forward is and of itself our voice testifying, crying out, witnessing to a God who will never abandon us, will never leave us, will never let us walk alone. Be the voice of one crying in the wilderness. Cry out, Isaiah said. What shall I cry? The prophet asked God. Bear witness to the light. Bear witness to the new life. Bear witness to the hope and the joy that is Jesus Christ, that has come to us, that comes to us, that will come to all through God's loving plan from before time.